A little bit has changed in the last week and change since I've been up here, so stay tuned and I will show you. It is Tuesday, July 14th. I'm back up on the ladder taking a look at the gutters and the gutter guards. A little bit has changed in the last week and change since I've been up here, so stay tuned and I will show you what's been going on. I am on the south side of the garage looking at HydroShield. HydroShield remains mostly free and clear. We have a little bit of debris lingering here on the bottom right hand corner. You can see some pine needles have started to fall. I'm seeing more and more pine needles on top of these gutter guard systems, so this will give you a good barometer as to how the other systems are working in relationship to HydroShield. So a few random pine needles here, a few pine needles kind of here stuck between the mesh and the metal at the bottom there of the screen, and then as we go across, a couple of twigs, oak related tassels, and then just a few more pine needles across the surface itself. So overall, very clean. This is pretty much how that product has remained for all the time that it's been up here. We've had a lot of rain in the last several days over the weekend. We had a significant series of downpours. I didn't have a chance to come outside and check it out because, frankly, I didn't want to get wet. But from looking from the inside out, everything looked like it was doing what it should be doing. If we check the face of the gutter here, you can see, again, not really much in the way of a change, maybe a few more specks of debris. And then if we come to the underside, maybe a little bit of water droplet activity at the bottom that I hadn't seen previously. But you can see, relatively speaking, how clean it is at the bottom. And you'll see here in a second how this kind of compares to the other system. So as we come across the bottom, you can see how clean the bottom is and then how clean the face of the gutter guard is, with the exception of a few bits of debris. This is LeafFilter. You can see here the debris has begun to clump up and break off the screen, so we have more screen that's showing than it did last week. Here's a good case in point how this works. So you have all the debris that's sitting on top of the gutter screen like it has been, like it is here in these spots. And then as it dries up, it starts to separate. Essentially, the breeze or the water is able to get between the screen and the debris itself, and then it breaks away. So here's a good example of the debris kind of breaking away. So the underlying component of what you're seeing there is a bunch of locust flowers that all clumped together and sat on top of this screen for a long period of time. As we're drying up, now that we're in mid-July, you're starting to see all that debris sufficiently lose its moisture content, and it's now able to kind of get blown off or washed off the top of the gutter guard surface. So this clump of debris is just kind of hanging on. It's almost like a wave or a waterfall. It's getting to the end. It's curled around to the front edge of the gutter. So you can see it's kind of sitting there. I wouldn't really say that it's caked onto the front edge of the gutter, but it's more or less hanging on, clinging on at the top. And as soon as that top releases, then that whole clump of debris should fall to the ground below. So if you look at the screen below it, you can see how the screen now is pretty clean. And that's part of the self-cleaning property that they talk about on micro mesh products, is that the screen is fine enough that ultimately that stuff can't get through it. It will kind of break away from the surface, and then as the water comes across it, it'll help clean that screen surface off. Now we're looking at GutterGlove Pro. It is also a micro mesh system, has a very fine screen, similar to that of HydroShield and LeafFilter. It is, this was covered up a few weeks ago, and now you can see there's quite a bit of screen that is visible. We still have a reasonable amount of debris sitting on top of this, and it's a little scattered around. So you can see spots where it's all screen, and you can see spots naturally where that debris is still hanging out. So this one does slide up under the first course of shingles. This is one that I would expect to do a little bit better job of getting rid of the debris. But you can see as it kind of transitions off the roof onto the screen, it's still sitting up there to a certain extent. So screen is available. I imagine the water is going through. We'll come back out and check it next time it rains and see how it does in the water situation. But this is its current status as of mid-July on the top of the GutterGlove Pro. Now when we come down, it's a little bit different story. You can see the debris that has collected along the face of the gutter here, and you can see to what extent it's starting to get real dirty. So there are a couple spots, like right in this area here, and then kind of in the middle where the downspout is, where it seems like it's drawing more debris off the top and working its way down, making the gutter face a little bit dirtier. As you come down here, again, you can see the streaks from the water changing color when it mixes with the debris, and how that stuff just sits up there. So if we get it down one more step and we look to the underside, this, looks probably pretty similar to what it did a week or so ago when I was up here. You have some of the yellowing, some of the water droplets at the front. You come across the other side, you can see more of those droplets. You come down to the end there and you can see a whole lot more activity. So that's pretty consistent with this yellowing effect that's been going on the front. It comes down to the bottom, works its way to the back, and it drips off the bottom. This is LeafLock, and it is a micro mesh system. It has a more porous screen than HydroShield, LeafFilter, and GutterGlove Pro. You can see that we are starting to see more screen appearing here. So when I was up here a little over a week ago, we had these little bits, if you will, kind of strewn across it. So while you could see the screen, there were a whole lot of those little flower bits that were just kind of clinging on. You can see some of it right here. So here's thicker material sitting on top, and as you come across the front, you can see more screen exposure, and then you can see those little bits that are kind of stuck to the screen itself. So what I'll be curious about here is how much of those bits just naturally fall off when the weather permits it, or the water washes it off, or the wind blows. So to be determined here, but you can see the debris that's sitting on top of this system. We still have a reasonable amount of debris up at the roof level there. So there's an opportunity that stuff will work its way off the roof onto the gutter guard, but my suspicion is once it dries up sufficiently, it'll just roll right off the top of the gutter guard. I mentioned earlier the pine needles. We're starting to see more pine needles falling off the tree above, so there's quite a bit of that. Here you can see a random leaf or two on the top. So we'll take a step down and look at the face of the gutter. We've got a fair bit of debris that is now clinging to the front, the face of the gutter. You can see spots where the water has come down. It's a little blackened in these areas across the front. And then if we take another step down, you look to the underside, and you can definitely see more water activity down here. So I can't really compare it to what we saw in the last video, but you'll be able to see that comparison. But the face of the gutter, to me, looks like it's probably doing a little worse than what it was the last time I was up here. This is Valor's diamond mesh, micro mesh screen. It's sold by a company called HomeCraft, based, I believe, in the Atlanta market. This is also a product that you can find online as a DIY type product. You can see it still has quite a bit of material sitting on top of it. So some of the screen is shining through, so there's some spots here where you can see the screen. But overall, there's quite a bit of material still sitting on top of this panel as we pan across there. So, a little hard to say at this point what its situation is. Again, compared to last week when I was up here, it has less material on it than it did, but relative to the other 4 systems we've looked at so far, it's still not doing as well. And of all the systems on this side of the garage, on the south side of the garage, it is faring the worst in terms of the debris at this point, now that we're in the middle of July. If we step down to the face of the gutter, you can also see a whole lot of debris across the face of the gutter. So if we just kind of pan across there, you know, there's a bunch of the flowers that are still stuck to the front. You've got quite a bit of kind of black residue that's come off the gutter guard and is now sitting on the face. And then if we go to the underside, there's a whole lot of yellowing of the water here. So this system in the water version of the test fared the worst of the systems on the south side of the garage, and on the from a debris perspective has also fared the worst on top of the cover itself. This is the leaf-free solid gutter cover on the south side of the garage on July 14, 2020. If you look at the top of the panel, you can see little bits of the locust flowers that have dried off. I think most of those are coming off the roof itself. They're drying up and then they're just kind of breaking away. So at this point, with very little breeze, they're just sitting on top. My expectation is those will just blow right off the top, fall off the top, whatever. If you come down to the opening, which is really the way that this system works, you know, the solid gutter requires, or the solid gutter cover requires the water to come down and curl around and go inside the opening here. You can see just how much of that debris is collecting across the front opening. It's worse on this left side than it is on the right, but you can, as I pan across here, you're going to see a reasonable amount of the debris inside that opening. So that tends to be the Achilles heel of these solid gutter covers, is the opening with the small debris. That stuff, when it gets wet, when it adheres to the water, just curls around and gets drawn inside the gutter. This system is no exception. So from a debris perspective on the top of the gutter guard, it's doing a very good job. Very little stuff up there, and there has been very little stuff up there through to the face of the gutter. Overall, it's doing a pretty decent job. Again, you see where more debris has kind of caught in the opening of the gutter guard itself on this side, and as a result, you've got more debris that's on the face of the gutter. As you come across, it's not too bad overall. There's a little bit at that far end, which I can't really reach to from my vantage point here. But overall, the face of the gutter itself is relatively clean. You come down to the underside, and you can see where the water droplets have come off the bottom of that. So that's a combination of water that's potentially coming off the gutter guard itself, but as much as anything, it's also water that's coming, hitting that front lip, and then just curling around the front lip, coming to the underside of the gutter, and then dripping to the ground below. So the leaf-free is the only solid gutter cover that we currently have in this test. We're using it because I feel like this is a good representation of other solid gutter covers. You're going to have a very similar result. Some of the other systems have a little bit smaller opening across the front, and some of them have a little bit wider opening. So this falls somewhere in the middle, and I think would be give you a good idea with small debris as to what you would expect. We are looking at HydroShield on the north side of the garage on Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. You can see here it is pretty clear. We've got a few pine needles, a few shingle granules that have broken away during the heavy recent rains. As you come across, you see very little debris on this system. You can see a few pine needles kind of dangling off the edge here on the left corner. We've had a little bit of debris. If there was any debris kind of hanging out on this system, it tended to be in this left-hand corner. And what I'm seeing here between last week and this week is that some of that debris has broken away, and it's slowly working its way off the surface. So overall, very little debris. Looks like maybe some bird poop there, and just some small debris across the top of the gutter guard surface. If I step down here, you'll see at the face of the gutter, we have a little bit more debris. In this particular case, we have a floating, you can see it right there, a floating pine needle. It's actually probably attached to a cobweb. It's not actually just floating there. Well, let's just pretend like it is floating. It's magical. But the debris that's actually attached to the gutter itself, a few random small needles, some of the locust flowers, but that's about it. So overall, the face of this gutter is very clean. Another step down to the underside, and you can see just a few remnants of where water has come dripping off the bottom of the surface. Overall, very clean, both on the gutter side as well as on the gutter cover side. Here we're looking at LeafFilter on the north side of the garage. It is July 14th, 2020. You can see quite a bit of the pine needles and the locust flowers that are still sitting on top of the surface of the LeafFilter system here on the north side of the garage. So on the south side, a lot of this debris has begun to break away, and in some cases has actually fallen off. Over here, it seems like it's just kind of settled down and is hanging out. We can definitely see some of the screen through the debris, but again, there's quite a bit of debris sitting on top of the cover. You can also see how some of that stuff is kind of dangling off the front. We also have a magical pine needle there, similar to on the HydroShield, so you've got some cobwebs that are allowing that to just kind of hang out there. But from the top perspective, not a whole lot of movement. Week to week, we are seeing a little bit more of the screen passing through, but we've seen also the addition of some of these pine needles. When I step down to the face, it's doing a good job. Very little debris on the front, a little bit kind of at the top there, the transition between the drip edge and the top edge of the face of the gutter there. And then if we come down another step, you look to the underside, you can see where some of the water droplets have formed, but again, overall it's very clean. Here we're looking at leaf solution on the north side of the garage, Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. We can now see some of the screen across the surface here. The debris appears to be kind of breaking off and moving off the top, while we have a reasonable amount of debris still sitting up there. Some of that is newer, so the pine needles that you see there seem to have been falling down in clumps. I don't know if it's because we've had some rain or it's just the time of the year. You're getting more of those needles falling off the tree than maybe they have been. You can also see this is a system that has these little channels in it, so like right in this area here and then up here. So you can see more of those locust flowers that are still lodged inside those channels. But again, you can see, maybe 40%, maybe 50% of the screen at this point. When we step down to the face, this one is faring a lot worse than both the LeafFilter and the HydroShield systems. So you can see quite a bit of debris that's clinging to the front face of the gutter, and then it's getting particularly dirty, whereas LeafFilter and HydroShield are virtually clean. This particular system is not faring quite as well. And then if we step down even farther, then you can see the water droplets that have formed at the bottom and some of the dirt that's going across the face and the underside of the gutter. Here we're looking at leaf lock on the north side of the garage. You can see a reasonable percentage of the screen as you go across the top, but you can also see quite a bit of debris still sitting on top of this system. So a little bit better maybe in the middle and to the right, and a little bit worse here to the left. What I saw on the south side was you had some of that smaller debris kind of clinging on to the screen, which would make sense because those were the locust flowers and they have little tentacles that kind of grab onto the screen. So we're seeing some of that hang on here. It's given way maybe a little bit better on the south side, but here on the north side, things seem to be a little bit more dormant in terms of its ability to move off the system. So if we come down to the face of the gutter, you can also see a fair bit of debris that has clung to the front of the gutter itself. Pine needle, locust flowers, and just some smaller debris and grime off the roof. You come to the underside here, and again you can see where the water droplets have formed at the bottom of this system. So as a mid-priced micro mesh with a little bit more porous screen on it, on the north side here, I would say it's keeping up with everything but HydroShield. Here we have the GutterGlove Easy-on micro mesh do-it-yourself gutter guard. You can see as I go across the top of the surface there, fair bit of debris still sitting on top of the gutter guard itself. We've got a little bit of a break kind of up at the transition between the shingles and the screen itself, so that would lead me to believe that water has come off the roof at a sufficient rate that it's helped kind of push some of that debris forward and or off the gutter guard surface. So at this point it is doing a better job than the leaf lock system. It still has a lot of debris sitting on top of it, but you can see there are more pockets of free area on this than on the leaf lock, which was just kind of consistently covered with areas of open screen. This one seems to be, it's kind of pushed the material forward a little bit and opened up certain spots across the top. As we step down to the front, you can see quite a bit of debris, and this has got more debris on it than leaf lock by a pretty good bit. I would say probably twice to maybe 3 times the debris. So if we just kind of look across, there's the leaf lock to your far right, that section of gutter there, and then you come back over here and we just have a whole lot of debris that's sitting on the face of this system. So if we take one more step down and we look to the underside, you can kind of see the transition of the debris from the face of the gutter to the bottom of the gutter there, and there's quite a bit of it. So clearly there's been water dripping off, and my previous observations in the rain are that this system is allowing a fair bit of water to come over the top of the gutter guard, or actually in between the metal here and the lip of the gutter. It's kind of skirting between those two areas and working its way down the face. So that would be kind of indicative of bringing some of this debris around as it kind of rolls down the screen. It has enough velocity to bring the debris around with it, and then it sticks to the face. We are looking at the Clean Mesh system, a micro mesh knockoff version of HydroShield. You can see here that it's got some debris to the far right, a little bit of debris to its left, relatively clean screen through the middle, and then just kind of a smattering off here to the left-hand side. So overall, this system has done a good job with the debris on top. It initially started out really strong. Once the flowers came off the locust trees, it got pretty well covered up. It wasn't entirely covered up, as I recall. To me, this looked like a globe. So it looked like a variety of countries with the ocean in the middle. So there was enough of the screen that was available to take in the water, but then there were like these continents full of debris just kind of randomly placed across the screen itself. It is clearly drying up, and it's clearly getting ready to kind of make its move off the top. We'll see if that happens over the next week or 2 or 3 or what. As we step down, however, it's a whole different story. This system is, I would say, either tied with or maybe even a little bit worse than the GutterGlove product, the Easy-on micro mesh do-it-yourself gutter guard. You can see all the debris that's kind of collected. And in this case, we've got pine needles, we've got a little leaves, and then we've got some of those locust flowers that have caught on the front lip and the face of the gutter itself. You come across to the left, not quite as bad. You can see some of the tiger striping, so it's just the dark lines that form on the gutter, discolor the gutter. The reason that occurs is water is able to come off the top lip of the gutter here, works its way down the face of the gutter, and it discolors the gutter. Well, this system has not been faring well in the water, and this is what I would consider one of the reasons why you're seeing this debris across the face. Now, it's not the entire reason, because really all but 2 of the systems on the north side have a reasonable amount of debris on the face of the gutter. And that is really because there's no drip edge. So if we had a drip edge here that kicked the stuff away from the face of the gutter, then you'd see a completely different animal. Well, you'd see what it would look like with either the LeafFilter or the HydroShield. The fact that you don't have that drip edge at the front allows that debris to cling to the front. But in this particular case, I attribute the amount of debris to the amount of water that is essentially rolling off the screen around the top and then coming down the face of the gutter. As we step down even farther, you can see a lot of the black and the watermarks and what have you across the base. So again, that's indicative of the fact that you've got that water coming across the face of the gutter and then dripping off the base of the gutter here. The crazy downpour rain is slowing down.